I'm Jack, 42M, and 3 years ago, I lost my wife Sarah, 38F, in a car accident. We have 2 kids, Libby, 14F, and Liam, 11M. Sarah and I met in high school when I was a sophomore and she was a freshman. We started dating after being lab partners in chemistry class, and from that moment on, we were inseparable. We went to the same college, got married right after graduation, and started our family soon after. We were together for 20 years before she passed, and her death has left a gaping hole in our lives. Sarah was a pediatric nurse, and she loved her job. She had a way with kids that was almost magical. She could calm even the most distressed child with just a few words and a gentle touch. It was no surprise that she was an amazing mother to our kids. Libby inherited Sarah's compassion and nurturing nature, while Liam got her quick wit and love for science. Sarah's family, especially her parents Celine, 65F, and Bob, 67M, were a big part of our lives. They lived just a few blocks away from us and were very involved with the kids. Celine, a retired elementary school teacher, would often pick up the kids from school and help them with their homework. Bob, who owned a small bookstore in town, would take Liam to science fairs and Libby to poetry readings. They were the epitome of doting grandparents. Sarah's younger brother Mike, 40M, was also close to our family. He was the fun uncle who would show up on weekends with new board games or take the kids to the latest superhero movie. Sarah and Mike were incredibly close, and he was devastated by her death. The night we lost Sarah is etched into my memory. It was a rainy Tuesday evening, and she was driving home from a late shift at the hospital. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit her car on the driver's side. She died on impact. The police officer who came to our door at 2 a.m. looked almost as devastated as I felt when he delivered the news. The first few months after Sarah's death were a blur of grief, funeral arrangements, and trying to keep it together for the kids. Celine and Bob were incredibly supportive during this time. They practically moved in with us, cooking meals, helping with the kids, and just being there. Mike took time off work and stayed with us for a month, helping to sort out Sarah's affairs and providing emotional support. However, as time went on, things began to change. It started subtly at first. Celine would make comments about how I was raising the kids. She'd question why I let Libby wear makeup to school or why I allowed Liam to play video games on weeknights. Sarah would never have allowed that, she'd say, her voice laced with disapproval. I tried to brush it off, reminding myself that we were all grieving and coping in our own ways. But the comments became more frequent and more pointed. Bob, who had always been more laid back, started chiming in too. They'd criticize everything from the kids' diets to their extracurricular activities. I found myself constantly defending my parenting decisions, feeling like I was failing to live up to Sarah's standards. About 6 months after Sarah's death, Celine started pushing me to date again. It started with casual mentions of single women she knew, a neighbor, a fellow church member, even Libby's math teacher. I politely declined each time, explaining that I wasn't ready. But Celine was persistent. She'd talk about how the kids needed a mother figure and how Sarah would want me to move on. "You're still young, Jack," she'd say. "You can't spend the rest of your life alone." I understood that she was coming from a place of concern, but it felt suffocating. I was still grappling with my grief, trying to figure out how to be both mother and father to my children. The thought of dating seemed impossible, almost disrespectful to Sarah's memory. Things came to a head at Libby's 13th birthday party last year. We had planned a small gathering at our house with family and a few of Libby's close friends. Celine had insisted on helping with the preparations, and I was grateful for the extra hands. But when she showed up on the day of the party, she wasn't alone. She brought a woman named Rachel, 36F, who she introduced as her friend from book club. It didn't take long to realize that this was a setup. Rachel kept trying to engage with me and the kids, asking pointed questions about our lives and interests. She was overly familiar, touching my arm when she laughed at my jokes and offering to help serve the cake. Celine hovered nearby, beaming at us like a matchmaker who had just made the perfect pair. I was furious, but I didn't want to cause a scene at Libby's party. I could see the confusion and discomfort on my daughter's face, and Liam had retreated to a corner with his video game, avoiding interaction altogether. Mike, who was also at the party, shot me sympathetic looks but didn't intervene. After the party, once all the guests had left and the kids were in bed, I confronted Celine. She admitted to setting me up with Rachel, saying it was for the kids' sake. She went on about how Rachel was a widow too and would understand our situation. I told her that her behavior was unacceptable and that she needed to back off. Celine got defensive, accusing me of denying the kids a chance at having a complete family again. "Sarah wouldn't want you to be alone," she insisted. "She'd want the kids to have a mother." "They have a mother," I snapped back. "Just because Sarah's gone doesn't mean she's not their mother anymore." From that point on, every interaction with Sarah's family became tense. They'd criticize my parenting at every turn, push for me to date, and even started telling the kids that I was being selfish by not giving them a new mom. It got to the point where Libby came to me in tears one night, saying she felt guilty for not wanting a stepmom. "Grandma says I should want a new mom," she sobbed. But I don't want anyone to replace mom. Does that make me a bad person? That was the last straw for me. I decided to limit contact with Sarah's family. I told them they could only see the kids if I was present, and I cut off all one-on-one communication between them and the children. They were outraged, accusing me of trying to erase Sarah's memory and rob the kids of their only connection to their mother. Celine and Bob started showing up unannounced at our house, demanding to see the kids. They'd call at all hours, leaving long, guilt-tripping voicemails. Mike tried to play peacemaker at first, but even he eventually sided with his parents, saying I was being too harsh. Now, Mike is getting married next month to his longtime girlfriend, Sophia. The kids were invited to the wedding, but I told Mike they wouldn't be attending without me. He says I'm being unreasonable and using the kids as pawns in my fight with his parents. Sarah's entire family is calling me an asshole for keeping the kids away from them. I feel like I'm protecting my children from manipulation and unnecessary stress, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm overreacting. The kids miss their grandparents and uncle, but I don't trust Sarah's family to respect my boundaries. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my kids see their late mother's family without me? Update 1. It's been about a month since my original post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and advice. It really helped me gain perspective on the situation and gave me the courage to take some necessary steps. After much consideration, I decided to have a serious talk with Sarah's parents, Celine and Bob. I invited them over to my house while the kids were at school, thinking a neutral ground might help keep things civil. I spent the morning before their arrival pacing nervously, rehearsing what I wanted to say. When they arrived, the tension was palpable. We sat in the living room, surrounded by photos of Sarah and the kids, a stark reminder of why we were all there. I started by explaining my concerns about their behavior and how it was affecting the kids. I told them about Libby's tears and guilt over not wanting a new mom, and how Liam had become withdrawn and anxious around them. I was firm but tried to be understanding of their grief. To my surprise, Celine broke down in tears. It was the first time I'd seen her cry since Sarah's funeral. She admitted that she'd been struggling to cope with Sarah's death and had projected her pain onto me and the kids. She confessed that pushing for me to date was her way of trying to fill the void Sarah left behind. I just miss her so much, Celine sobbed. Every time I look at Libby, I see Sarah at that age. I'm terrified of losing that connection. Bob, who had always been quieter about the whole situation, apologized for not stepping in sooner to curb Celine's behavior. He admitted that he'd been so focused on supporting his wife that he'd neglected to consider how their actions were affecting us. We had a long, emotional conversation where we all shared our feelings about losing Sarah. I told them about the nights I still woke up reaching for her, only to find her side of the bed empty. They shared stories about Sarah's childhood, some of which I'd never heard before. It was the first time since her death that we'd really opened up to each other, and it felt like a dam had broken. Celine and Bob agreed that their actions had been inappropriate and promised to respect my boundaries going forward. We came to an agreement. They could see the kids once a week for dinner at our house, and I would be present. They also agreed to stop pushing the idea of me dating or the kids needing a new mom. However, the situation with Mike's wedding was still unresolved. I explained to Celine and Bob why I was hesitant to let the kids attend without me. I told them about my fears of other family members trying to manipulate the kids or make them feel guilty about our current situation. To my surprise, Celine and Bob offered to act as buffers between the kids and any family members who might cause problems. They promised to stick with Libby and Liam throughout the wedding and reception, and to bring them home if anyone made them uncomfortable. We've already lost so much time with them, Bob said. We don't want to miss out on this important family event. After thinking it over for a few days, I decided to let Libby and Liam attend the wedding with their grandparents. Before they left, I had a long talk with the kids about setting boundaries. I told them they could call me at any time if they felt uncomfortable, and I made sure they had both my number and Mike's programmed into their phones. The day of the wedding, I was on edge the entire time the kids were gone. I must have checked my phone 100 times, expecting a call or text saying something had gone wrong. But when they came home that night, they were happy and excited. They talked over each other, eager to tell me about the ceremony, the cake, and the dancing. Libby gushed about how beautiful Sophia's dress was and how she'd caught the bouquet. Liam couldn't stop talking about the awesome DJ and how Uncle Mike had let him request songs. They both mentioned that a few relatives had asked about me, but said that Grandma and Grandpa had quickly changed the subject each time. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of our relationship with Sarah's family. It's going to take time to rebuild trust, but I feel like we're on the right path. The kids are happy to have their grandparents back in their lives, and I'm relieved that we've found a way to move forward that respects everyone's feelings. We've had 2 family dinners since the wedding, and they've gone surprisingly well. Celine and Bob are making a visible effort to respect my parenting decisions, and they've stopped making comments about me dating. Instead, they're focusing on building their relationship with Libby and Liam. Last week, Bob brought over some of Sarah's old journals from when she was Libby's age, and they spent the evening reading them together and laughing over Sarah's teenage drama. It's not perfect, and we still have a long way to go, but for the first time in months, I feel like we're all on the same team again. We're all just trying to keep Sarah's memory alive while finding a way to move forward. It's a delicate balance, but I think we're finally starting to get it right. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some developments. Things with Sarah's family have been going relatively smoothly. Celine and Bob have been keeping their weekly dinner dates with us and respecting our boundaries. The kids are happy to have their grandparents back in their lives, and I've noticed a positive change in their overall mood. Libby has been spending more time with Celine, learning to knit and bake, 2 of Sarah's favorite hobbies. It's bittersweet to watch, but I can see how much it means to both of them to have this connection. Liam and Bob have started a model airplane building project in the garage, something Sarah and I had always talked about doing with him but never got around to. However, a new situation has arisen that's causing some tension. About a month ago, I met someone. Her name is Olivia, 39F, and we connected at a work conference in Chicago. I'm an architect, and she's an urban planner. We met during a panel discussion on sustainable city design and ended up talking for hours afterwards. Olivia is smart, funny, and passionate about her work. She's also a single mom to a 10-year-old boy. We've been on a few dates since the conference, and I really enjoy her company. It's the first time since Sarah's death that I've felt a connection with someone, and it took me by surprise. I haven't introduced Olivia to the kids yet, as I want to be sure about the relationship before taking that step. But I did mention to Libby and Liam that I've been seeing someone. Their reactions were mixed. Libby seemed okay with it, even a bit excited for me. She asked a lot of questions about Olivia and seemed genuinely interested. Liam, on the other hand, got very quiet and has been a bit distant since. He hasn't said anything negative, but I can tell he's struggling with the idea. The real problem started when Celine found out. Libby accidentally mentioned it during one of our family dinners. She was talking about a book she was reading for school, and she said, "Dad's friend Olivia recommended it to me." Celine's reaction was unexpected. She burst into tears and accused me of betraying Sarah's memory. Bob tried to calm her down, but she left in a huff. Since then, Celine has been calling and texting me non-stop, alternating between anger and pleading. She's saying things like, "How could you do this to Sarah? And the kids aren't ready for this." She's brought up the fact that it's only been 3 years since Sarah passed, as if there's some magical timeline for when it's okay to move on. Bob is more level-headed and has been trying to mediate, but it's clear he's uncomfortable with the situation too. He called me the other day and said, "I understand you have needs, Jack, but don't you think it's too soon?" The kids are still adjusting. I'm feeling frustrated and conflicted. On one hand, I understand that this is a big change and it might be hard for everyone to accept. I know that Sarah's family sees my dating as a threat to her memory. But on the other hand, I feel like I have the right to move on with my life. I didn't choose to be a widower at 39, and while I'll always love Sarah, I don't think she'd want me to be alone forever. The kids are caught in the middle again. Libby overheard one of Celine's angry voicemails and now feels guilty for mentioning Olivia. She came to me in tears, apologizing for ruining everything. I reassured her that none of this was her fault, but I can see the stress it's causing her. Liam is withdrawing more and more. He's spending a lot of time in his room and has been less enthusiastic about the model airplane project with Bob. When I try to talk to him about it, he just shrugs and says he's fine. I'm at a loss for what to do. I don't want to end things with Olivia. She's been a breath of fresh air in my life, and I enjoy the adult companionship. But I also don't want to damage the fragile peace we've established with Sarah's family or upset my kids. I've considered family counseling, but I'm not sure if Celine and Bob would agree to it. They seem to think that this is a problem that will go away if I just stop seeing Olivia. But I don't want to give up on the possibility of finding happiness again, even if it's complicated. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How did you handle it? I feel like no matter what I do, I'm going to hurt someone. I want to honor Sarah's memory and respect my in-laws' feelings, but I also want to be able to move forward with my life. Is there a way to do both? Update 3. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I wanted to share the resolution to this situation. A lot has happened, and it's been a roller coaster of emotions for everyone involved. After Celine's initial outburst about Olivia, things got worse before they got better. Celine started calling the kids directly, despite our agreement about communication. She would tell them how upset she was about me dating and how it was disrespectful to their mother's memory. This really upset Libby and Liam, and I had to step in immediately when I found out about Celine's calls to the kids. Libby came to me one evening, clearly distressed, and showed me a series of text messages from Celine. They were filled with emotional manipulation, saying things like, "Your mother would be so heartbroken to see your father replacing her, and don't you miss how our family used to be?" Liam had received similar messages, though he'd been trying to hide them from me. This was the final straw. I decided to take a firm stand. I called a family meeting with Celine, Bob, and the kids. I asked Mike to be there too, hoping his presence might help keep things calm. We gathered in our living room on a Saturday afternoon, the tension palpable as everyone took their seats. I started by addressing Celine and Bob directly. I told them that while I understood their pain, their behavior was unacceptable. I explained how their actions were affecting the kids, showing them the messages they'd sent. Libby and Liam both spoke up, telling their grandparents how the situation was making them feel torn and guilty. I love you, Grandma and Grandpa, Libby said, her voice shaking. But I don't want to feel bad about Dad being happy. Liam, usually so quiet, surprised everyone by speaking up. Mom wouldn't want us to be sad forever, he said softly. She always said love makes more love, not less. Their words seemed to hit home in a way mine couldn't. Celine broke down crying, but this time it felt different. She admitted that she had been holding on to the grief so tightly because she was afraid of losing her connection to Sarah. I feel like if Jack moves on, we'll lose the last piece of her we have left, she sobbed. Bob, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke up. He admitted that he too was struggling with the idea of me dating but recognized that it wasn't fair to try and control my life or manipulate the kids. Sarah wouldn't want this for any of us, he said, his voice thick with emotion. We all cried together, and for the first time, it felt like we were truly sharing our pain instead of using it as a weapon. Mike, who had been silently observing, suggested that maybe we all needed some professional help to work through our grief. To my surprise, Celine agreed. She said she would look into grief counseling, and Bob decided to join her. It was a breakthrough moment, and I felt a glimmer of hope that we might be able to move forward. As for Olivia, I decided to take things slow. I had an honest conversation with her about the situation, and she was incredibly understanding. We're still dating, but we've agreed to give it more time before involving the kids or Sarah's family. She's been patient and supportive, which has only made me appreciate her more. It's been a month since that family meeting, and I can already see a change. Celine and Bob have started therapy, both individually and as a couple. They're more respectful of our boundaries and seem to be working through their feelings in a healthier way. Our weekly family dinners have resumed, and while there's still some awkwardness, it feels like we're moving in the right direction. Libby and Liam are doing better too. We've had many open conversations about their feelings regarding me dating. Liam finally opened up about his fears of forgetting his mom if I started a new relationship. We spent an evening looking through old photo albums together, talking about our favorite memories of Sarah. It was painful but also healing for all of us. I've also started individual counseling to work through my own feelings about moving forward. It's helping me navigate this new chapter in my life while still honoring Sarah's memory. The road ahead isn't going to be easy. There are still moments of tension and sadness. Just last week, Celine got teary-eyed when she saw I'd rearranged some furniture in the living room. But instead of lashing out, she took a deep breath and said, "It's different, but it looks nice." It was a small moment, but it felt like a big step. We're all learning to balance remembering Sarah with living our lives. It's a delicate balance, but I believe we're on the right track. The kids seem happier and more relaxed, and I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and kind words have been a source of strength for me. I know we still have a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful about our future as a family.